All right, guys, my name is Thomas Riggs. My dissertation proposal is called Teamwork Makes the Dream Work. It's educators' perceptions of the impact participating in extracurricular activities has on chronic absenteeism in high school students. The reason I chose this topic is because obviously I'm going to my 10th year teaching, but also in our county, Sevier County, we struggle with some chronic absenteeism issues. And being a high school baseball coach, I've obviously had a lot of experience with extracurricular activities. And really, I wanted to just measure the importance of those and other programs, not just sports, other programs, and see if we can determine if they have an impact on chronic absenteeism, so that we can help those students out. And you'll see here on this slide, it says purpose of study to determine if participating in extracurricular activities has an effect on chronic absenteeism in high school students. And then also determine the importance of those connections and relationships developed that are made if such effect is present. Okay, and if we can identify those, hopefully we can help some kids make it easier for them to come to school or motivate them more to come to school. So far in my literature review, my major findings about participating in extracurricular activities is that relationship building. And then also character development, because a lot of times, in coaching or even in a club, there's still some coaching goes on there, even though it's not a sport. You do have to, there's some accountability and some discipline that may be missing. And that gets into the chronic absenteeism, some of those root causes, looking at those, a lot of obstacles that are in place for a lot of our students and a lot of students everywhere that lead to some of those root causes, lack of parental involvement, maybe a financial situation, maybe in our area specifically a transient situation. So that's some of the major findings so far that I've run into in my lit review. Qualitative research questions. What are educators' perceptions of the impact that participation in extracurricular activities has on chronic absenteeism rates in high school students? And then also, what are educators' perceptions of the sense of belongingness that can be created from extracurricular activities versus regular education classrooms? And what are some of those similarities and some of those differences? And it was really important here in talking with Dr. Taylor that we said educators, because a lot of teachers are not going to have awareness of what's going on with chronic absenteeism rates in their school. But they'll know their students miss a lot, specifically the ones they teach, but they may not have some of them. Or if they teach all honors, they may not run into as many chronic absenteeism rates. And then a lot of times you do have administrators that may be more familiar with both participation in extracurricular activities and those chronic absenteeism rates. Theoretical frameworks. My theoretical framework is going to be based around Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There may be more as well, but tier 3 in Maslow's hierarchy of needs deals with belongingness and relationships, and extracurricular activities can play a role in facilitating the development of those relationships and lead to that sense of belongingness. The conceptual framework that the lens I'm going to be looking through is those participation in extracurricular activities and the impact that it has on chronic absenteeism rates, and if a student is missing a lot, is there a lack of belongingness? The type of study, and I'm talking with Dr. Taylor, I'm going to do a phenomenological study. This is going to be perfect because a couple reasons. One, this research is good for the study because I'll be collecting stories and figuring out common themes in these stories. Taking those experiences from teachers that have been in the profession, around the children, and figuring out why, if any, impact is made on chronic absenteeism through participating in those extracurricular activities. Now, furthermore, the study aligns with what Sevier County specifically will let us do, and what type of study we can conduct. And like I said earlier, it's also important to identify educators with knowledge and experience about extracurricular activities and how they impact students' experience in the school setting, specifically chronic absenteeism. The participants will be a mix of educators. It'll be through convenience, obviously, those that are willing to participate, and experience with both chronic absenteeism and extracurricular activities. The forms of data that I'll be using, obviously a literature review, what's already known about these topics. A survey, that'll give me some initial insight as to what experiences and expertise that some of our educators in our building have with these topics. Interviews, what are the experience of the teachers and the knowledge of their knowledge of extracurricular activities and chronic absenteeism. And that will be the basis, that and the focus group will be the basis of what I use to collect my evidence, and then move from there to determine what's happening. Again, there's the forms of qualitative data, observations, interviews, focus groups, surveys. Essentially, I want to be able to figure out who's willing to participate, what they know specifically, and then select my group that I want to study and learn their experiences and their interactions with extracurriculars and what impacts they have in developing those relationships that hopefully lead to a positive impact on chronic absenteeism. The data analysis, the 3-step coding. Obviously, once I get to the interview process, there'll be transcripts of interviews. They'll be coded into open coding, identify similarities and differences among the responses given. From those, I'll do axial coding and selective coding to narrow down and determine some themes and connections between, hopefully, extracurricular activities and chronic absenteeism. Specific techniques planned for organizing the data is going to be recording those interviews with a device or app, transcribe them through a computer program, and then really use that information to organize a spreadsheet through the coding process and get those things categorized and create some relationships between the responses and experiences of my participants. The qualitative trustworthiness techniques. Big things is going to be triangulation, obviously using 3 forms of data at least to ensure the credibility. Member checking, make sure that the information they gave and the way I've interpreted the information is what they want to be put into the study and what they intended for their response to mean. An audit trail. Obviously, I'll be keeping the information around for a minimum of 7 years to compare, in case anybody wants to compare or further extend the research that I've done. And I'm really lucky here at our school to have multiple peer debriefers, and they'll help keep me on track with making sure that I'm conducting the study the way I need to and the way that I intend to create the results and the outcomes, make sure they are credible, that I'm looking for. Ethical considerations, obviously the participant consent methods. I'll be making sure that everybody understands before they participate in the study what the objective is and the purpose, what I'm trying to do. I'll make sure that they sign a consent form before they participate in any portion of the study. And I will do everything possible through the data collection process, the write-up, the storage, and in the peer debriefing to make sure that everybody is anonymous and that their responses and identity is protected. With that being said, obviously I want to use this study hopefully to implement more programs if the study leads to a result that says, hey, participating in extracurricular activities does help a given student and their ability to come to school and develop those relationships so that they can be successful. I appreciate your time. Thank you again. And